Hi, my name is Daniel Kerridge, and this is an analysis of Luigi's Mansion 3. Luigi's Mansion 3 is a game where you have to explore a haunted hotel to save your brother Mario. Every floor there is an elevator button that will take you up to the next floor of the hotel, and while you're doing so, you'll be capturing as many ghosts as possible, and also trying to grab as much treasure and gem also as possible. The design pillars of this game, I would say, are slapstick. As this game takes place in a haunted mansion, you would think that it is a horror game, but it's actually the opposite, as Luigi's over-the-top reactions to everything horrific going on make this game more of a comedy more than horror. Exploration, as I mentioned before, this is a 15-floor hotel, and each floor has a bunch of secrets to find and gems to collect. Combat, this hotel is full of ghosts that Luigi has to bust by sucking them up into his vacuum. Also, every floor has a unique boss fight that Luigi must conquer to move on to the next floor. And finally, puzzle solving. When you're not busting ghosts, you're exploring the hotel and solving puzzles. This leads to finding hidden gems and hidden gold that Luigi could use to get a better rank at the end of the game. These are what I would say make up Luigi's Mansion 3. For the core gameplay, I would split this into two areas: busting ghosts and solving puzzles. Now, every mechanic that Luigi has in this game can be used for both of these scenarios. For example, the slam move can be used to slam ghosts into the floor, dealing more damage or even damaging other ghosts. Or it can be used to move objects out of the way, or even hit pressure pads that Luigi can't reach. This is used for every mechanic in this game. For example, a flashlight can be used to see a dark area, but it's also used to stun ghosts. Whereas the burst attack can be used to push ghosts away, but also it launches Luigi in the air, so if he needs to jump, he can use that. So how is this game successful? Well, for one reason, it could be the fact that it's on a Nintendo Switch, which is the second highest selling Nintendo console to date. And comparing the sales from Luigi's Mansion 3 to the other two games, Luigi's Mansion 1 and Dark Moon, it almost doubles the sequel and almost does 4 times more than the original. Another reason could be that there's no other game like this. Luigi's Mansion is definitely the ghost busting video game. Whenever someone wants to play a ghost busting game, they would come to Luigi's Mansion, and that even includes stuff like the actual Ghostbusters game that a lot of people don't know about. But I'd say this is probably the closest thing to a game that is similar to Luigi's Mansion, but even then, not many people know about this game, and I would say Luigi's Mansion is much more popular. Another reason could be people's love for Luigi. People love Luigi so much that back in 2013, he had his own year, which had a bunch of new releases, including the sequel, Luigi's Mansion 2. And finally, they addressed the issues and went back to the original game. While Luigi's Mansion 2 was a good game, it had a lot of problems, and everyone agrees that the original was better, especially since the structure of Luigi's Mansion 1 was a lot better and less distracting. So when the developers were talking about Luigi's Mansion 3, they mentioned that they were going back to the original style, where there's going to be one mansion to explore, and you could explore it to your heart content, instead of having these missions-based structure like the sequel. Another reason could be that it's not like any other Mario games. In the year 2022, a lot of Mario games look pretty much the same, always have the same art style, the same mechanics, the same power-ups. So this change of pace could definitely be a reason why a lot of people wanted to play this game, as the haunted aesthetic and the overall spooky atmosphere is definitely a pleasant change compared to the original Mario style. Finally, the easy multiplayer. In this game, player 1 is Luigi and player 2 is Gooigi, and Gooigi is a character who, while having less health, and whenever he dies he will respawn, so this is a much easier way to have like someone who's less skilled at games to play along with you while also feeling like they're accomplishing the same thing as you. So for the target audience of this game, this is a game made by Nintendo, which are known for making games that are for everyone, not just kids but also adults. I'd say this is definitely easy fun, as the game is overall easier than a lot of the games out there. It shows more joy over fear, like I mentioned previously, how Luigi's reaction to all the fear and scary stuff makes the game a lot of fun and joyful. Like I mentioned before, this game isn't just for kids but also adults who have played the original back in 2001, as the game is very similar to the structure of that first game. And I would say this game is mostly made for males, as there's a lot of destruction and puzzles to solve, but the emotion in Mario and Luigi's brotherly love could also be a target audience for females. The flow theory of this game, I would say, is Anything magnetory, so magnetory combat, magnetory puzzles are pretty easy to solve. But any bonus content, like such as gems or treasure, that's where the challenge really comes in. So any inexperienced players can still play through the game and get to the end without any struggle, whereas more experienced players can try to go for everything, which is where the game really steps up its challenge and tests the player on what they know. I will say this game is definitely more of it's about the journey than the destination, however, as while collecting all the gems can be fun, the reward is pretty much worthless and not worth it in the slightest. But then again, if you're someone who's into collecting and going for 100%, you will still have a lot of fun getting all the gems in this game, just maybe not for the reward. Another way to do this is through level design. The good parts of the game is, since there's 15 floors, every floor is unique and has its own gimmick. This could be a pirate cove or a movie theatre, and each floor has its own unique mechanic to it. This could be swinging from vines in the jungle area or having to shoot swords out in the medieval area. And at the end of every floor has a unique boss fight that is almost a puzzle itself, as the player needs to figure out how to hurt the boss, and then when they figure out how to do it, they have to execute it without obviously getting hit. The bad parts of this level design, however, I would say is the amount of backtracking you have to do. There's multiple points in this game where a cat steals your elevator button and you have to backtrack through a floor to get it back, which can be kind of annoying since they don't really change an awful lot through the floors, especially if you've already gone for 100%. And there's also a big side quest where you have to hunt down every boo, which again has a lot of backtracking, which could definitely kill the pace of the game. I would also say the first couple of floors can be kind of boring, as the first couple of floors of this game are generic hotel themes, which these boring floors help contrast from the more interesting floors later on in the game, and definitely for the first time playing through can be very fun. But after the first playthrough, these floors are definitely the weakest point of the game and can be a very slow start to a very fun game. The presentation is where I'd say this game shines the most. As you can see through the art style and these pictures, it's very cartoony, and the no parallel lines makes everything seem slightly off, which gives a very creepy atmosphere without having to have blood and other horror aspects that would raise this age rating. And while the lighting at some points can also help the atmosphere, as you can see in the first image, the green glow of like the chandelier and the moon in the last image give a very creepy look to these rooms. Sometimes the rooms can be a little bit too well lit, and I would overall say that the first game has a better atmosphere compared to this one. Something that I will say this game shines definitely the brightest in is the animation, as Luigi is so fun and goofy in this game that you can't help but smile whether he's doing a fun little dance with his feet on the floor, or whenever he's terrified out of his mind having to fight a giant evil ghost. Another thing that helps this is the voice lines by Charles Martinet, which are brand new for this game. A lot of the time when Nintendo make Mario games, they use the same voice lines, so Mario's Wahoo is the same in Mario Kart and Mario Party, and the Mario Brothers games, they're all the same like clips. But in this game, Charles Martinet came back and recorded brand new clips for Luigi and Mario to make this game feel more unique compared to the other Mario games. Finally, the music, which is definitely the weakest point. It does its job fine, as whenever you go to a new room, it definitely makes you feel like you're in that area. For example, in the prehistoric area, they have a bunch of drums to make you feel like you're in a cave, and in the disco area, they have more club mix songs. So while it definitely does its job and it fits the theme of the level, I will say the original game and the sequel have more iconic tunes that are beloved to this day compared to this game. Finally, the controls. The good parts of the controls is that every action is mapped to a button, which means you don't need a weapon wheel, and it simplifies it for more inexperienced players, as you just need to remember which button does what instead of having to remember a certain combination of buttons. They also added motion controls, as if a player doesn't really understand how two sticks could work, as one stick is used to move Luigi and the other one is used to move his flashlight around. If they find that a little bit hard to manage, they could just have motion controls where they can move the controller to move the flashlight. The bad parts of these controls, however, is that while every action is mapped to a button, I wish they had a second look at it, as sometimes to do certain actions you have to put your hand in a very weird position. So changing around the buttons so that they feel more comfortable in a player's hand would be very helpful, as in game there is no way to change button layout. But that's the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening.